Gemini Man. It's not a new movie. It came out in 2019, and there is a high chance that you've never seen this movie before. Well, the thing is that this movie actually didn't perform that well. If you look at the IMDb ratings, yeah, they're pretty low, and there is a reason why. So the reason why I decided to check out this movie was because of this one scene that I accidentally stumbled upon on the internet. This scene. So the first thing, that I saw when I saw this scene was like, is that a CG Will Smith? No way. I gotta check it out. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, let me just do a quick recap of the plot. We have Will Smith. In the movie, his name is Henry, and he is a former Marine sniper. The first scene in the movie is Will Smith trying to kill a bioterrorist on a train in Belgium. But before he shoots his target, for some reason, a random child, with no apparent reason, decides to stand right in front of the bioterrorist, right before Will is about to take his shot. Which makes Will hesitate, and he shoots only last second, managing to kill the target. But the interesting thing is, why did this child even come into the shot? What was the reason? I don't know, maybe the child could have seen something outside of the window, or maybe he saw something interesting on the table. But in the movie, the kid just stands up and decides to come in for no reason, no motivation whatsoever. But okay, maybe I don't understand the kids, but this is how it is in the movie. And Henry hesitates to take the shot, and writers are trying to tell us first that Henry is a conscious man, he doesn't want to kill the kid, he's a nice guy. And second, that he's a very skilled killer. I mean, he managed to shoot the target right before the train went into the tunnel, so it makes it clear for us damn, I guess he's a big deal here. Then all of this is weighing heavy on the Henry's shoulder, and he starts to cry about it. My bullet was this close to the little girl, this close. I could have killed her. I could have killed her, man. My past is catching up with me, man. I'm sorry, sir. You're holding up the line. There is actually a lot of people waiting. This close! Well, he's a sensitive man, and he decides to retire. The first thing that he does is rents a boat, and he meets this rent lady there that he tells to her that he has a bee allergy, which is important, by the way. After that, after going on his boat, he decides to meet with his friend Jack, who is chilling on his yacht somewhere in the middle of the ocean. Once they meet, Jack tells to Henry that the person that he killed actually was innocent scientist, to which Henry says, "What?" and asks for the proof. Jack says to Henry that it was his informant Yuri who told him about this scientist, and of course Henry wants to meet with this informant Yuri, so he asks for the meeting from Jack. Meanwhile, DIA is watching over this conversation by using their, typical enhancement technology that we've seen so many times in other movies.
Magnify that death sphere. Why is it still blurry?
That's all the resolution we have. Making it bigger doesn't make it clearer.
It does on CSI Miami.
The main antagonist of this movie, Clay Verris, says that he is going to kill Henry. So this is the first time where we find out that the government is trying to get rid of him now. After talking to Jack, Henry goes back to the rent lady, and he figures out that the rent lady is his fellow agent, and decides to use his "Are you DIA?" Reese.
Are you DIA? I'm sorry. Can I buy you a drink?
After he raised her up, Jack gets killed, he gets thrown into the water, and in the middle of the night, Henry realizes that there is a target on him. So he sneaks out, one of his past friends gets killed, another useless character in the plot, by the way. Then he calls up Danny, well, he doesn't really call her up, he just shows up at her house and takes her with him. Then they both realize that the government is trying to kill both of them, so they decide to hide. Luckily, Henry has a friend named Baron, by the way, another character that doesn't really play any significance in the movie besides being somewhat a comic relief and helping them out to hide, and he hides them somewhere safe in his place. While they are hiding, a new assassin is sent after them. And during the shooting scenes and all of this action, Henry realizes that this new assassin kinda looks like him. Then they have a crazy motorbike chase scene, which is, by the way, one of the good scenes in the movie. After the fight, we learn that CG Will Smith is an adopted son of Clay, the main antagonist. At that point, Danny decides to test the DNA of Will Smith against the CG Will Smith, and they realize that the CG Will Smith is a clone of the real Will Smith. And apparently, all you need is
surrogate mother and a DNA sample.
Henry finally gets to meet with Yuri, an archetypal Russian character.
My government lied to me, then tried to kill me, if that's what you mean.
Yes. In Russia, we call that Tuesday.
Yuri tells Henry about the secret project called Gemini, and that the scientist that he killed was one of the scientists who developed the cloning technology, and that Clay raised CG Will Smith as his son. Henry decides to make a deal with DIA where he asks to bring Danny safely back to the United States without being targeted. DIA agrees and sends out CG Will Smith to do the procedure. Their goal was essentially to talk to the CG Will Smith. Then there is this weird scene where CG Will Smith meets Danny and he decides to check her for the wire. Because, you know, like in this day and age, people still using wires. Why would you need a phone? Why would you need advanced super good technology where you can use the wire, right? So CG Smith brings Danny into the basement, he sets up a bunch of traps on the way, but of course Henry manages to avoid all of those traps and meets with CG Will Smith. Then they have like this awkward conversation about the secrets and the fears that they both share, and you know, essentially Henry starts to roast CG Will Smith.
What are you, 23? Still a virgin, right? Yeah.
Watching those perverted cartoons, huh? Yeah, you watch them. 23. At your age, I was watching tentacle genre. Yeah.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
And after that, CG fight breaks out. And it looks a bit weird. Nonetheless, it's very interesting to watch. They both fall into the water, and then they have this shot where they don't even bother to hide the stuntman with CG Will Smith. At this point, they were just like, you know what, fuck it, like, we already have CG Will Smith, we're already putting the flashlight on his face, and he's in the fucking water! You know what, let's just leave the stuntman in the shot. After the fight, both Wills go their separate way. CG Will confronts his adoptive father and cries CG tears. After that, CG Will shoots Henry with a bee poison, because, you know, looking the same, sharing the same fears, sharing the same fucking mindset is not enough. But a bee poison is gonna prove it, right? Then Henry and CG Will have heart-to-heart in a car, where Henry talks about his past mistakes. My life was so hard, you shouldn't make the same mistakes as I did. So essentially Henry is trying to convince CG Will Smith to live a normal life. Suddenly, out of nowhere, they get shot by a rocket launcher. Because, you know, the only way to kill them is to send out a private army out in the streets, out there in the public, and, you know, they need a rocket launcher, they need a machine gun, they need a bunch of, like, superhumans just to kill a couple of people there. CG Will and Clay fight on the roof, where Clay gently bites on the hand of CG Will. After knocking him out, CG Will reunites back with Henry and Danny at a safe location. Clay, of course, wakes up because he wasn't killed, and he sends a new superhuman after them. Superhuman rushes like a flash. Just look at this scene, how he runs. It's just insane. He's having actually Flash speed, man. So Superhuman rushes towards the roof, and the fight begins again. So Henry, CG Will Smith, Danny and a superhuman fight all together. The superhuman, for some reason, his skin cannot be pierced by bullets, because that's how super he is. And, you know, by the end of the fight, they realize that there is another CG Will Smith. How many CG Will Smiths do they need? You know, at this point, I'm just thinking that the VFX artists were like, you know what? At this point, just like, I'd like 10, 20 CG Will Smiths. You know, we do it. We can do anything. After killing the superhuman, another CG Will Smith, I'm gonna call him superhuman so that it wouldn't be too confusing, Clay shows up without a weapon, because he thought it would be a great idea to show up the people that tried to kill him without a weapon and try to convince him and share his motivation with them, because it's gonna make everything good, right? So what was the motivation of Clay, you know? Like, what was the reason of him creating those clones? So Henry's motivation was, he got inspired by Star Wars Clone Wars, where they cloned Jango Fett, and he decided to do the same thing with Will. because he was the perfect killing machine, and it's better to have clones as soldiers than the real people. So he is the hero in this story. And of course, after this motivational speech, Will immediately shoots him in the face with a gun. And essentially after that, everything kinda like goes back to the status quo, they all go back to living happily ever after. And the legendary scene comes in. Look into CG Will's soulless eyes. Just look into them. And this is basically the end. You know, nobody cares that there is exact copy of Will Smith walking around, looking all soulless. You know, I guess it's just everyday thing for everybody else. So, happily ever after. The end. This is the plot of Gemini Man. And honestly, before I started watching the movie, I had pretty low expectation because of all the ratings and the reviews, but overall I was pleasantly surprised with VFX. I mean, the VFX were created by the Veta FX, the same guys who later on created new Avatar for James Cameron. And you know, they're one of the best in the industry. And you know, in certain shots, it looks amazing, like great, you know, I could barely tell the difference, just look at these shots. In the shot it's impossible to say if it's a real Will or not. I mean, I didn't even realize that in those shots it was a full CG Will Smith, which means that the VFX team did a great job. Overall, it seems that the whole thing was extremely challenging in terms of VFX. You know, I'm just trying to imagine what the conversation between Paramount and VFX artists were like. We are making a movie where Will Smith fights his younger self. Okay, cool. How many shots? All of them. Wait, what? Half of the movie is going to have CG Will in there. Okay, I mean in the background or wearing a mask? No. Facial close-ups, flashing with a flashlight on his face, fighting in the water. I don't think that's a good idea. I mean, we have the technology, but it's not there yet. Jimmy, why do you think I hired you? To be a VFX supervisor? I throw money! You dance like a monkey, got it? I'm sorry, Your Grace. I'll do as you wish, I'm sorry. I think towards the end, they probably had a very tight deadline, or maybe not enough budget, and you know, all of this accumulated into this scene being born. I think that the cast and production are great. The only part that sucks about this movie is its plot. You know, it feels like they just had this idea like, oh, we're gonna have CG, Will, and the real Will fight together, and you know, like we're gonna make the whole movie about it, and nobody did that before. We're gonna get so much money. And you know, it shows that this was their idea and that they built the whole movie around it. Unfortunately, the plot makes the movie not worth a rewatch, but you can still watch it to appreciate the VFX. On my meter of cash or trash, I think it's somewhere above the middle, which makes it more cash than trash. The movie is worth watching if you want to check out the VFX, hilariously weird fight scenes, and of course, the soulless Will at the end of the movie. I think that's about it. Thanks for watching, bye.